So the purpose of the spreadsheet I created is to organize and plan a wedding in 2016. Um, the explanation of the way you completed the case problem. So uh, I used quite a few methods, and they weren't necessarily as clean as the um, textbook moves through. However, with practice, I'm sure that I'll have presentations just as seamless as the ones that we used during our assignments. So I'll start with the summary page and then go through the formulas that I used. So on the summary page, I just had some high-level information in chart form. Bride versus groom, adults versus children, expense overview going through the most significant expense to the least significant expense, and then a savings plan. On the agenda page, I added some time of day here, and to calculate duration, I subtracted column A from column B, and then I added a sum for each to show the total event duration. On expenses overview, I took the total budget, which was an input field, or an input that I added, and to get the allocation for each of these, I multiplied the total budget by a certain percentage, and the percentage I got just from a suggestion on a wedding website. And so for each of the high-level categories, I added that there. For the subcategories within, I did the same thing. So I estimated what percent of each of these items made sense from this overall allocation. So to come up with the percentage, I just thought, okay, what, $75 a person for food times 115, that's about 8,000 and 8,625. So that's roughly about 60%. So 60% is a bit less than the total calculation, but yeah, the percentages that I added here were just percentages that I thought made sense, and I did that through the entire spreadsheet. I added conditional formatting to get a quick visual read to see, okay, within each of these subcategories or within each of these high-level categories, what is the majority of the budget? And you can see really quickly, okay, photography is the largest expense. Welcome gifts for out-of-town guests, largest expense. Invitations themselves, things like that. And I actually based this table on this set of data rather than this set of data, because as I selected each of these lines and tried to make a chart, it actually said Excel said I wasn't able to. So I just took these values and said, this cell equals this cell equals this cell, and I derived my expenses overview chart from this list. I derived these two charts from the guest list tab, where I have, the name of each guest, the household they belong to, which side they are on, whether they're an adult or a child, and then I had some breakdowns here. For the child section, I actually did an if. So I said, if this is blank, then the value of this should be 1. I just liked that formula, and it was an easy way to add the children here. So for total guests, I just did a sum of all of these two columns together. And to understand the percentage of children and percentage of adults, I did a sum of each column and then divided that by 115, coming up with these percents. For total tables, I actually should have done a calculation here. So I ended up adding 17 tables, 7 guests if I have 7 tables and I want 7 guests per table, I divided the total number of guests by 17, and so you get 7 people per table. And for households, I actually used a pivot table. So I added household as the row, and then I just highlighted it and used the count down here to calculate the number of households. And so for here, I just wanted to understand, okay, how much does it cost per household? How much would it cost per table, and how much would it cost per guest? So I took the number of guests, and I did a calculation with the total budget. So with a total budget of $27,000 and 115 guests, the cost is $234.78 per guest. So if you divide 27,000 by 17, it winds up being $1588.24 per table, and then per household it's $574.47. With this pivot table, I actually took the data from the guest list, created the pivot table with the percentage breakdown, and created this table, or this chart. And then for the final table, I took savings. So I plan on splitting the total cost 50-50 with my fiance. So I just multiplied 50% by the total number, which was 27,000. This is how much savings I have towards the wedding now, and this is how much I plan to save, or that I'm able to save per month. And so what I did was, for each of these, I took the beginning balance. I took the balance and added 1,000. So then, this was the new total. So I took that and added 1,000, and so on and so forth. And so to come up with 50% of the total, we would have to have the wedding no earlier than May. And one of the features that I really liked that I hadn't used before was the data bars feature. I look forward to finding new applications for it. I thought it was really helpful. I feel like pivot tables are always most helpful because they help me to look at data really quickly in a new way without having to give it a lot of thought. I think I use pivot tables for almost everything. Even though I didn't use them too heavily here, I feel like that's the most helpful feature, where the data bars was a new feature that I wasn't aware of before.